All right, so get this. We're diving deep today into a story that adds
Right.
like a whole other layer to the legend of Jay-Z.
Okay.
And it all revolves around his relationship with a former Roc-A-Fella associate,
Right.
DeHaven Irby. And trust me, this isn't just, your typical music industry gossip.
Right.
We're talking some serious revelations that have left
you're right.
everyone wondering, like, what is really going on
Yeah.
behind the scenes?
I think what's so captivating about this is how Irby's revelations
Mm,
really challenge that carefully crafted image of Jay-Z that we've all come to know.
oh, yeah.
It's almost as if we're seeing two different versions of him,
Yeah.
a Jay-Z from the music, the self-made mogul,
Mhm.
and then this other Jay-Z that Irby presents.
Right.
Someone a bit more human, more flawed.
So let's unpack this a little bit.
Okay.
Irby points to a specific incident that really kind of shattered their friendship.
Yeah.
While he was serving time for a parole violation, Jay-Z apparently did something that he considered to be a major betrayal. He doesn't go into specifics about what it was,
Right.
but he calls it a funny-ass move,
Okay.
which kind of gives you a sense of just how personal,
Yeah.
this felt to him.
It's interesting, that language there, right? Like,
Yeah.
it goes beyond just feeling disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to this, like, violation of trust
Yeah.
on a fundamental level.
Yeah.
And this incident seems to be the
Yeah.
catalyst for Irby deciding to speak out now,
Right.
to share his side of the story, even if it means going up against
Yeah.
one of the most powerful figures in the music industry.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Irby claims that Jay-Z has been embellishing his past in his music,
Oh, wow.
even going so far as to call him a low-level dealer. Now, think about how Jay-Z has built his whole image.
Yeah.
Like, on his street, cred his rise from the streets to the top.
Right.
This directly undermines that entire narrative.
It's a direct attack on the core of Jay-Z's persona.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and it makes you wonder, like, how much of a rapper's image is based on reality versus
Right.
carefully constructed storytelling?
Exactly.
Is it all just part of the performance, or does there need to be some level of
Yeah.
authenticity to connect with the audience?
And Irby doesn't stop there.
Okay.
He actually alleges that Jay-Z took elements of his life and used them in his music, even referencing a specific line on the Black Album.
Okay, so that raises a really interesting question about creative inspiration versus appropriation.
Right.
How much borrowing is acceptable in a genre like hip-hop,
Yeah.
where artists often draw from their own experiences and the people around them?
Right.
And if someone feels like their story has been used without their consent,
Yeah.
how do they reclaim that narrative?
This is where things take another twist.
Okay.
Jay-Z has remained completely silent on these accusations.
Yeah.
No denials, no explanations,
Wow.
just radio silence.
So what do you make of that?
I mean, it's definitely a bold move, right?
Yeah.
In a world where public figures are kind of expected to respond to every allegation, this silence from Jay-Z speaks volumes.
It suggests a certain level of confidence,
Right.
maybe even a sense of being untouchable.
Yeah.
But it also leaves a lot of room for interpretation.
Right.
Some might see it as the sign of guilt, while others might view it as a strategic move to avoid giving Irby's claims more attention.
So here we are.
Yeah.
We've got this really intriguing situation. Irby, a figure from Jay-Z's past,
Right.
comes forward with these potentially damaging allegations,
Yeah.
challenging the authenticity of his story
Right.
and his street cred.
Huh.
And Jay-Z, the king of hip-hop,
Right.
responds with complete silence,
Wow.
leaving us to ponder the meaning behind his lack of response.
It's like a chess match.
Yeah.
Each player is making these calculated moves,
Yeah.
and we, the audience, are left trying to decipher their strategies.
Totally.
This whole saga really highlights the power dynamics at play in the music industry and how a single voice can potentially disrupt the narrative
Yeah.
that's been carefully constructed
Yeah.
around a major figure like Jay-Z.
Oh, yeah. So let's dig a little deeper into this low-level dealer claim,
Okay.
because it really gets to the heart of this whole authenticity debate in hip-hop.
Right.
You know how Jay-Z has built his entire career on this rags to riches story, coming from the streets of Brooklyn to become a global icon?
Yeah.
Well, Irby's claim directly challenges that whole narrative.
Exactly. And it's not just about semantics either. It's about the image
Right.
that Jay-Z has cultivated through his lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about tracks like 99 Problems or Empire State of Mind.
Oh, yeah.
They're full of these references to hustling drug dealing,
Yeah.
surviving in a tough environment.
Yeah.
And Irby's basically saying, hold on, that wasn't really how it was.
So what you're saying is even if Jay-Z did dabble in the drug game,
Right.
Irby's claim is that it diminishes the level of involvement that Jay-Z has portrayed through his music.
And that's significant because it undercuts the narrative that has made him so relatable to so many fans.
Yeah.
The idea that he's someone who came from nothing,
Right.
made it to the top through sheer grit and determination.
But isn't there always an element of exaggeration in music?
Mm.
Especially in hip-hop. I mean, artists are storytellers.
Yeah.
And sometimes they embellish things for dramatic effect.
Of course, there's always a degree of artistic license.
Right.
But in hip-hop, there's a fine line between creative storytelling and outright fabrication.
Yeah.
This genre prides itself on authenticity, on reflecting real-life experiences. And when that authenticity is called into question, it can really damage an artist's credibility.
Okay, so how does this all tie back to the incident that Irby says was like the breaking point in their relationship?
Well, I think it all comes down to trust and loyalty,
Okay.
which are central themes in hip-hop culture.
Right.
If Irby felt like Jay-Z violated that trust, especially while he was in a vulnerable position, it would make sense that he'd feel betrayed.
Yeah.
And want to expose what he perceives as hypocrisy.
It's like he's saying, if you're going to build your image on loyalty and keeping it real,
right,
you better actually live by those principles.
Exactly. And that brings us to Irby's most explosive claim.
Okay.
That Jay-Z appropriated elements of his life for his music.
Yeah.
Specifically pointing to a line on the Black Album.
Right.
Now, we can't know for sure what Irby is referring to, but it raises the question of how much a rapper can draw inspiration from the people around them without crossing the line into exploitation.
It makes you wonder if Irby feels like he contributed to Jay-Z's success in some way.
Right.
And he's never received proper credit for it.
That's definitely a possibility. And it speaks to the complexities of collaboration.
Yeah.
In the music industry, ideas often flow freely between artists.
Right.
And it's not always clear where one person's influence ends and another's begins.
But if you're Irby and you've watched Jay-Z achieve this global fame and fortune, potentially using your story as part of his rise, it would be understandable to feel resentful, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. It's like watching someone else profit from your experiences without acknowledging your contribution. And in a genre like hip-hop, where personal narratives are so closely intertwined with artistic expression, that kind of appropriation can feel especially personal.
So what do you think Irby hopes to achieve by speaking out? Is it about setting the record straight, or is there something more to it?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think there's a sense of wanting to reclaim his own story, his own voice. He's been living in the shadow of Jay-Z's success for years.
Right.
And now he's stepping forward to say, hey, I was there too.
Yeah.
And this is my perspective.
It's almost like a David and Goliath situation.
Yeah.
Irby the underdog.
Right.
Taking on the hip-hop giant, challenging the official narrative, and forcing us to re-examine the stories we tell ourselves about success and authenticity.
And what's fascinating is that Jay-Z's silence only adds fuel to the fire.
Right.
It allows Irby's claims to linger in the air, creating a space for doubt and speculation.
It's like a power move.
Yeah.
Almost as if Jay-Z is saying, I don't need to address this. My legacy speaks for itself.
Right. But even if he chooses not to engage directly, his silence doesn't erase Irby's voice.
Right.
It simply creates a more complex and nuanced story, one where multiple narratives coexist, challenging us to think critically and question everything we thought we knew.
It's wild how Jay-Z's just stayed quiet through all this.
Yeah.
It's almost like his silence is saying more than words ever could.
It really is a fascinating study in just the power of silence, right? Like in this day and age when everybody's expected to react immediately on social media and everything.
Right.
Jay-Z just staying quiet feels almost defiant.
It does. It's like he's saying, look, I'm above it all. I don't even need to respond.
Exactly. A classic power move.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to validate these claims with a response.
Right.
My success, my legacy speaks for itself.
But you gotta wonder if that's really gonna work out for him. Like, some people might see it as him being guilty. Like, he's got something to hide.
It's definitely a possibility. And it's worth considering, too. That maybe there's some legal reasons for his silence.
Oh, right.
Like, maybe his lawyers have told him not to say anything, just in case, you know, it could be used against him later.
Yeah. So we're dealing with a lot of unknowns here.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, this whole thing with Irby, It definitely makes how we see Jay-Z way more complex.
It really does.
He's still the icon, the businessman, you know, the cultural force.
Yeah.
But now there's this shadow hanging over him.
Right. Like we're seeing these cracks in the facade a little bit.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder how it'll affect his future projects.
Right.
You know, his brand partnerships, his whole image.
Are fans going to start questioning his lyrics now?
It's hard to say what the long-term impact will be.
Yeah.
But Irby's story has definitely shifted the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new perspective, a challenge to what we thought was the truth.
And that's not something you can just easily erase.
Nope.
So why should all this matter to you, the listener?
Well, it's a good reminder that the stories we tell about success and authenticity,
right,
they're often way more complicated than they seem on the surface.
Yeah.
There's always more to the story, more to think about.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, right?
Exactly. The more you peel, the more you realize how much you didn't know.
And this isn't just about Jay-Z and DeHaven Irby either. This is about questioning all the narratives we're given.
Yeah.
In music, politics, even our own lives.
It's about being critical thinkers, looking at things from different angles, and being open to the idea that the truth might be more complicated.
Yeah.
And a lot more interesting than we first thought.
So next time you hear a story that sounds a little too perfect or too simple, just take a second.
Yeah.
Ask some questions. Dig a little deeper. You might be surprised by what you find.
That's the beauty of a deep dive.
Exactly. And that's a wrap on this deep dive.